video, I want to put to the test the upturned water bottle irrigation system and see if it's something that actually does work or whether it's just the clickbait. The internet is full of these often clickbaity looking videos, so I wanted to see if it really worked because it does look like it could be actually a really useful way of watering our plants while we're away. So the test was to see how long the water bottles took to empty inside the container, and the second thing was to see exactly how well distributed the water was throughout the container. So I started with two rather large terracotta containers, which I just bought the other day because they were reduced to £10 each, and they were about as tall as the actual water bottle, so I thought they were a good fit for the experiment. Of course, if you wanted to experiment with a smaller tub, you could just use a smaller bottle. Because I can't measure where it's wet if I use wet compost, I'm going to use dry compost. And the other problem with using the dry compost is that it will wick the water much faster. So it could sway the experiment, but I'm going to do it twice anyway. I'm going to do it with dry compost, and then we'll see how well it wet the compost in patches or whether it did it all over. And then I'll do it again with wet compost to see how that works and to see if it makes a difference in terms of the amount of time that the bottle discharges all of the water into the pots. So just quickly filled up both these pots with dry compost and use some builder's sharp sand because I do like the sand, because it obviously loosens the soil for roots, but it also loosens it so that the water doesn't just sit in a big bog. And also it helps you it's just extra mass, isn't it, that's cheaper than the premium compost. So there we go, we've got it all ready. And then I had to get my bottles ready. And again, here's another variable that you could I put several holes in. I think I put about 9 or 10 holes in each bottle. So I guess if you wanted a slower drain, then you would put less holes. If you wanted a faster drain, you'd put more. But I settled on this because I felt these were evenly drilled holes that would evenly disperse the water into the pot. That's what I was going for. And of course you have to keep the lid on the bottom of the pot because you don't want the water just running straight out the bottom hole. So then to prepare the pot, I just obviously removed all the labels. I did remove the lid just to cut the bottom off the bottle because you have to have somewhere to pour the water into, and it's really hard when the lid is on because it's kind of full of air and you can't really get the scissors around it. And then I used a soldering iron to put the holes in. But, you could put, say, a kitchen roll in there and just stab a few holes in. If you don't have a soldering iron, you don't need one. It was just easier. And then I just had to bury it. And I decided to bury it in two different locations. Since the pots are identical, we could work with the positioning of the pot, the water reservoir as well. Because it depends what you're going to plant in there. If you're going to plant something in the centre of the pot, you obviously don't want your irrigation system in the centre of the pot. So I've done one in the centre, assuming you're growing things around the edge of the pot, and then I'm going to do one at the edge of the other pot, assuming you want to grow something in the centre, and we'll see if it affects the way the water is dispersed throughout the soil. I did originally cover the top holes, but then I decided that it would be quite useful to have some of the water running over the top of the soil. So I did actually punch some more holes in around the top, just above the surface of the soil, so that that first reservoir of water would just spill out and then anything can trickle down. So here's the second pot going in here along the side, and then you can just see me putting the extra holes in just so that I had that water trickling on the surface as well as all the way down through the pots. And then the next thing was just to basically fill it up with water. And as you can see, it's already spreading that top bit of the reservoir straight onto the top of the compost. And then I did another bottle, obviously, in the other bottle. And then when that was full up and complete, I timed it, and the first one drained much more slowly than the second one. But in all, they took about 10 minutes, which was a lot quicker than I was expecting. And I couldn't understand why the one near the side of the pot drained really quickly. About 3/4 it drained almost instantly, and then left that little reservoir in the bottom. But the first one, the one that's in the centre of the pot, took a little bit longer to drain, but in total they both drained in about 10 minutes, which was really quick. Let's see how well the water dispersed throughout the compost. So you can see we have a nice layer here. Let's take that off. Oh, this is nice here, wet here. Yes, nice and soggy. Let's keep going. It's pretty nice and soggy here, up to about here. So I've got nothing around the edges. Let's keep going. So this is really nice and moist. Here, enough to keep a plant going, but not lose all this compost all the way. Let's dig around a bit more. Let's see how it looks further down. It's looking nice and wet actually. I mean, considering we started with pretty dry soil, nice and wet all the way here. It's cool. It's really, really nice. So the only where it's not wet is here. It's not wet at all here. Let's go down a bit further then. Oh, it's really, yeah, it's really moist. Really to here, I would say, if you can see. Here, it's moist. I mean, I wonder if it's even more effective than let's just take you down. You can see here it's really, you know, it's good actually. It's just not reaching the edges here. So it drained pretty quickly, but it's really evenly distributed, the liquid. So I was really, really pleased about it. Really, apart from just the very edges of the pot, the soil was pretty well distributed with moisture. So, I mean, if the roots are pretty healthy on the plant, they are definitely going to find moisture in this pot. And then I did obviously the second pot, and rather than, I did that in real time, but it was taking too long, the video, so that didn't work as well. Remember, that one drained a lot faster, and it definitely didn't drain as well as this pot. And I'm showing you now how it was so moist at the bottom of this pot. It really did work well. But the second one, as I say, was not so evenly distributed. In the end, it was still wet in parts, but there were much greater volumes of drier compost. But anyhow, I did say I was going to do the whole experiment again, because obviously with the compost being dry, then I suspect that was the reason they drained so quickly. But ideally, if you were doing this at home, you would obviously water the pots well before you left them to their own devices and filled up the well to irrigate them while you were out. And so I did that again. I planted up some tomatoes, and I completely thoroughly watered the compost and the tomatoes, and then the whole thing again before I filled up the well, to see how long it would take once the, you know, with the soil being already saturated. And the result was extremely different to this first experiment where it all drained in 10 minutes. It still had water in it 4 hours later. It drained, I would say the first third drained in about quite quickly, and then after that it slow drained for about 4 hours, and there was still water in when I came in to edit this video 4 hours later. So in conclusion, what I think is quite obvious is that it actually does work, but it's not a long-term solution. So where it works is in the height of summer, on those heatwave days when you want to go to the beach or you're at work all day and those containers dry out in a flash in those heat waves, those long hot days, and you're out. So I think on days like that, you know, when you don't want to come home and find all your plants have wilted or just even struggled, then especially those thirsty plants, I mean, some plants will not bother at all in a container if it's just dry for one day. But some plants, you know, they just don't want to have to deal with that stress. And I think for those plants, this really works. And there are actually some other advantages to it as well. In that you know, obviously you save on the amount of compost you need to use if you're going to shove a bottle in the tub. And also I think you could slow release fertilizer this way by pouring it into the well as well with your water. I think that would work really well. So if you're going out for the day, you know, a long hot day, you've got a business meeting or you're going straight to the pub after work, or you're going to the beach and you're not planning on racing home to water your tomatoes, then I think this is a good solution, providing you thoroughly saturate the container before you leave, then fill up the well just before you leave, and your plants are going to be absolutely fine by the time you get home. I think for anything longer than that, possibly if you're going for a weekend away, it could work, it may work, but you know, I think really you're talking about a 24-hour save, not much longer than that. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found this experiment really helpful, and that it will help guide you if you decide you need a system like this to help you while you have a day out, or even if you're at an allotment when you can't be there every 5 minutes watering. I think it's a good system. So let me know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe, click the notification bell, share with your friends, check out my website and everything like that, and I'll see you again in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.